Stoicism teaches us that life is filled with external circumstances beyond our control. Our only true power lies in how we respond to these events. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus left us with a profound guide on how to live a life of resilience and inner peace. Through the following 8 principles, we can learn to navigate the challenges of life without allowing anything to disturb our tranquility. These principles are not merely philosophical ideas to ponder. They are practical tools to help you achieve a state of mental fortitude. If you have ever felt overwhelmed by others' judgments, struggled to control your emotions, or found yourself constantly seeking validation, this video will show you how Stoicism can transform your life. Stay with us until the end, and you will gain powerful insights on how to protect your peace and live according to your true nature. As we explore each principle, I encourage you to reflect on your own experiences and consider how these teachings can be applied to your daily life. 1. Exercise high control over your mind. The mind is our most precious possession. Epictetus teaches that we should guard it as carefully as we would protect our homes. Think about it. Would you leave the doors to your house wide open for any stranger to enter at will? Of course not. Yet, how often do we allow negative thoughts and harmful judgments from others to invade our minds and disrupt our peace? The Stoic way of life teaches us to exercise vigilance over our thoughts, especially when we encounter insults, criticism, or negativity. The moment we let these external opinions linger in our minds, we grant them power over us. Why should we allow others to dictate how we feel? It is up to us to decide which thoughts we permit to dwell within. The role of self-discipline. Self-discipline is essential in maintaining control over our minds. It requires a conscious effort to recognize when a negative thought arises and to choose not to engage with it. When someone insults you, ask yourself, is this worth my attention? Does this opinion truly define who I am? Most often, the answer will be no. The teachings of Stoicism remind us that the true source of suffering lies not in the insult itself, but in how we process and interpret it. An insult is merely a string of words. If we let it pass without internalizing it, it has no power to harm us. This is not to say we should ignore all feedback. Constructive criticism can be valuable, but we must learn to discern between helpful guidance and mere negativity. Guarding your inner fortress. Imagine your mind as a fortress, with you as its gatekeeper. You decide who or what gains entry. Do you allow destructive thoughts to enter and wreak havoc? Or do you keep the gates firmly shut to protect your inner peace? Epictetus tells us that we must cultivate a mindset that treats our mind as sacred, allowing only those thoughts that are beneficial and aligned with our values. This idea aligns with the Stoic concept of apatheia, a state of being unperturbed by passions. By exercising high control over what we allow into our minds, we gradually achieve apatheia, a condition where external events no longer have the power to disturb our inner tranquility. Questions for reflection. How often do you find yourself ruminating over a negative comment or criticism? Are you allowing the judgments of others to dictate your happiness? What steps can you take to become a better gatekeeper of your own mind? The first principle of Stoicism challenges us to be ever vigilant over the state of our minds, to actively choose which thoughts deserve our attention, and to let go of those that seek to disrupt our peace. Let us now turn our focus to understanding the nature of harm itself and how it relates to our perception. 2. Remember that no one can truly harm you. It is not the events or actions of others that cause us distress, but our judgments about them. When we believe that someone has harmed us, it is because we have accepted their words or actions as harmful. Yet, Stoicism teaches us that no external force has the power to harm our character or disturb our peace unless we allow it. Understanding true harm. Epictetus asks us to consider, what is true harm? Is it an insult from a stranger, a harsh criticism from a friend, or a failure in some endeavor? According to Stoicism, these external events are indifferent. They are neither good nor bad in themselves. It is only our judgment that assigns them value and allows them to impact us. When we recognize that no one can harm us without our consent, we reclaim our power. We understand that the true source of harm lies in our response, not in the event itself. This does not mean we ignore wrongdoing or fail to stand up for ourselves. It means we do not let these occurrences dictate our inner state. Cultivating inner strength. To embody this principle, we must cultivate inner strength. Consider the analogy of a tree. Strong winds may shake its branches, but its roots remain firmly grounded. Similarly, when faced with adversity, we should remain rooted in our values and principles, unshaken by external disturbances. Inner strength comes from a deep understanding of who we are and what we stand for. When we are confident in our own character, the opinions of others lose their power over us. If someone judges you based on false assumptions, remember that their judgment reflects their own misunderstanding, not your reality. Practical application. Whenever you encounter a situation where you feel wronged or insulted, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, am I truly harmed by this, or am I choosing to be affected by it? Reflect on whether the judgment of another person changes who you are or diminishes your character. Most often, you will find that it does not. This realization is empowering because it means that your peace and well-being are within your control. Others can attempt to insult or criticize you, but only you decide how much influence their words will have. Questions for reflection. Have you ever felt devastated by a harsh comment or opinion? Why did it affect you so deeply? What would change if you no longer allowed others to determine your sense of self-worth? Can you practice seeing criticism as indifferent, neither inherently good nor bad? The second Stoic principle invites us to reclaim our power by recognizing that harm can only affect us if we allow it to. By changing our perspective, we can transform challenges into opportunities for growth. Let us now explore the importance of focusing on what is within our control and accepting what is not. 3. Understand what is within your control. Central to Stoicism is the idea that some things are within our control while others are not. This distinction is crucial because much of our suffering comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. We exhaust ourselves fighting battles that we cannot win simply because they lie beyond our sphere of influence. The sphere of control. According to Epictetus, what lies within our control are our own thoughts, beliefs, desires, and actions. These are the elements we can shape and improve. On the other hand, things like the opinions of others, external events, and even our physical bodies lie beyond our control. To focus on these is to invite frustration and disappointment. When we direct our efforts toward what we can control, we become masters of our fate. We develop a sense of peace because we no longer expend energy on what is beyond our reach. This does not mean we become indifferent to the world, but rather that we choose where to invest our efforts wisely. Embracing acceptance. Stoicism encourages us to accept what we cannot change. Acceptance is not resignation. It is a recognition that some things are simply not within our power. When faced with circumstances beyond your control, ask yourself, can I change this? If the answer is no, then direct your energy toward what you can influence, your own response, your own actions. Acceptance also extends to letting go of the desire to control the outcome of every situation. We may wish for success, but we must accept that the outcome is not entirely within our hands. What we can control is the effort we put in and the attitude we maintain. In this way, we find freedom in letting go of our attachment to specific results. Practical application. To apply this principle in your daily life, practice distinguishing between what is within your control and what is not. Whenever you encounter a stressful situation, create 2 mental lists, one for aspects you can influence and one for those you cannot. Focus your efforts on the first list and make peace with the second. Questions for reflection. How often do you find yourself worrying about things beyond your control? Are you willing to let go of the need to control outcomes and focus on your own actions instead? Can you embrace acceptance as a form of empowerment rather than weakness? By understanding the limits of our control, we free ourselves from the burden of trying to change what cannot be changed. This leads us naturally to the next principle, where we learn the value of remaining steadfast in our purpose. 4. Hold firm to your purpose. Epictetus teaches that unwavering commitment to one's purpose is essential for living a life of virtue and tranquility. The opinions of others can often sway us from our true path, especially when we fear ridicule or judgment. However, Stoicism encourages us to remain steadfast in our pursuits, even in the face of adversity. Staying true. Despite adversity. When pursuing your goals, you may face criticism or skepticism from those around you. People might mock your efforts or question your motivations. This is particularly true if you choose a path that is unconventional or contrary to societal norms. Epictetus reminds us that if we change our course due to fear of others' opinions, we betray our own nature. To live authentically, we must prioritize our values and commitments above the fleeting judgments of others. Consider this. If your purpose is worthwhile and aligned with your true nature, why let anyone deter you? Perseverance in the face of ridicule is not a sign of arrogance, but of inner strength. Eventually, those who once mocked you may come to admire your dedication, though even if they do not, it should not affect your commitment. The danger of seeking approval. One of the greatest obstacles to holding firm to your purpose is the desire for approval. When we seek validation from others, we allow their opinions to shape our actions. This makes us susceptible to abandoning our true calling whenever we encounter resistance or disapproval. Epictetus advises that we guard against this tendency by focusing on our own judgment and principles. When your decisions are based on your values rather than external validation, you become unshakable. You live for what is right rather than what is popular, and in doing so, you fulfill your highest potential. Practical application. To practice this principle, identify your core values and purpose. Whenever you face a choice, ask yourself, does this action align with my true purpose, or am I doing it to gain approval? Use this reflection as a guide to stay true to your path, regardless of external opinions. Questions for reflection. Have you ever abandoned a goal because of fear of judgment? How can you strengthen your commitment to your purpose despite external criticism? What would it feel like to pursue your true calling without seeking approval from others? Remaining steadfast in our purpose leads us to deeper fulfillment and inner strength. Now, let us turn to how we should approach living in a way that does not hinge on the validation of others. 5. Do not worry about living in dishonor. Living a life dedicated to virtue and authenticity often means embracing a path that others may not understand or value. In today's world, where social validation is highly sought after, especially through platforms like social media, there is a temptation to mold ourselves to fit the expectations of others. Epictetus cautions against this mindset, as it places our happiness in the hands of external forces. The trap of social validation. When you care too much about honor or status, you risk compromising your true self for the sake of appearances. Ask yourself, am I living my life in a way that aligns with my deepest values, or am I simply trying to appear respectable in the eyes of others? The constant need to gain recognition or avoid dishonor traps us in a cycle where our sense of self-worth is dictated by external opinions. Stoicism teaches us that the opinions of others are beyond our control. If we attach our happiness to how others perceive us, we place ourselves at the mercy of forces we cannot influence. Instead, we should seek contentment through living virtuously, regardless of whether others recognize our actions as honorable or not. Embracing your true nature. Your true worth lies not in your reputation, but in the quality of your character. Whether you are praised or criticized should not sway your commitment to virtue. Remember that not everyone will understand or agree with your choices, and that is acceptable. What matters is that you live according to your own principles, not according to the fleeting standards of society. By letting go of the fear of dishonor, you free yourself to act with integrity. You focus on doing what is right rather than what is merely popular. In this way, your life becomes a reflection of your inner values, not a performance for the approval of others. Practical application. Practice ignoring the praise or blame of others by focusing on your own standards of right and wrong. When you find yourself worried about what others might think, remind yourself that their opinions do not determine your worth. Ask whether your actions align with your principles, and let that be your guide. Questions for reflection. Have you ever made a choice based solely on what others would think? Do you often seek social validation at the expense of your own values? What would change in your life if you no longer cared about status or recognition? By learning to detach from the need for social approval, we move closer to true freedom. Let us now explore the practice of interpreting insults as opportunities for growth. 6. Interpret insults as opportunities for growth. In Stoicism, insults are seen as opportunities to practice self-control and develop a stronger character. The teachings of Epictetus remind us that the emotional pain from an insult arises not from the words spoken, but from our interpretation of those words. It is our own judgment that grants them the power to harm us. Changing your perspective. Consider this. When someone insults you, they are expressing their opinion based on their own perspective. Their words do not change who you are or affect your character unless you allow them to. If you react negatively, you give power to the insult, letting it disrupt your peace. But if you choose to see the insult as indifferent, you maintain your inner tranquility. This does not mean that you accept disrespect passively, but rather that you recognize the limits of external harm. Insults only affect us when we internalize them. By choosing not to react, you rise above the negativity and demonstrate true strength. Embracing adversity. Stoicism teaches that adversity, including insults, can be used as a training ground for the mind. Just as physical exercise strengthens the body, facing insults without being disturbed strengthens the mind. When you encounter a negative comment, see it as an opportunity to practice patience, resilience, and self-control. By viewing adversity in this light, you shift your focus from the insult itself to your response. This empowers you to grow from the experience rather than be diminished by it. Practical application. The next time you are insulted, take a moment to pause and reflect before reacting. Ask yourself, is this insult worth my attention? What does my reaction say about my character? Practice responding with calmness and indifference, and use the experience to strengthen your ability to remain undisturbed. Questions for reflection. How do you usually respond to insults? Do you let them affect your mood? What would it mean to see insults as neutral, neither harmful nor beneficial? Can you use moments of adversity to develop greater resilience? Interpreting insults as opportunities for growth allows us to navigate life's challenges with greater ease. Let us now look at the principle of acting according to our best judgment, regardless of external approval. 7. Act according to your best judgment, not for approval. Epictetus teaches us to base our actions on our own understanding of what is right, rather than on the desire to gain approval. Too often, we compromise our values to fit in or to please others. However, living a life that seeks only to conform to others' expectations leads to a loss of authenticity. Following your own path. When you act according to your best judgment, you take responsibility for your life. This requires confidence in your own principles and a willingness to accept the consequences of your actions, even if others disagree. Ask yourself, am I acting out of a genuine sense of what is right, or am I trying to gain favor? Living according to your own judgment also means being prepared for misunderstandings. Not everyone will see the world as you do, and that is okay. Your focus should be on maintaining integrity rather than on winning approval. When you align your actions with your values, you live authentically. The cost of seeking approval. Seeking approval leads to a kind of inner slavery where your actions are dictated by the opinions of others. When you let go of the need for external validation, you free yourself to act with greater confidence and purpose. Remember, the judgments of others are beyond your control. What matters is your own assessment of your actions. Practical application. Whenever you are faced with a decision, ask yourself if your choice is influenced by a desire for approval. If so, reflect on whether this choice aligns with your values. Make it a habit to act according to your best judgment, trusting that this approach will lead to a more fulfilling and virtuous life. Questions for reflection. How often do you change your actions to gain approval? Are there times when you have compromised your values for the sake of others' acceptance? What would happen if you based your actions solely on your own sense of right and wrong? By following our best judgment, we cultivate a life of integrity. Now, let us explore how we can avoid placing our happiness in external validation. 8. Avoid placing happiness in external validation. The Stoic approach to happiness is centered on self-reliance and inner contentment. Epictetus warns against placing our happiness in the hands of others, as this makes us vulnerable to constant changes in opinion, status, and circumstances. True happiness is found by looking inward, cultivating virtue, and finding satisfaction in our own judgments. The illusion of external happiness. When we chase external validation, we are like ships tossed by the waves, never finding a stable harbor. The opinions of others are ever-changing, and basing our happiness on such instability leads to a life of constant anxiety and disappointment. Stoicism teaches us to seek fulfillment within ourselves by focusing on what is truly valuable, our character and actions. Self-reliance and inner contentment. The key to lasting happiness lies in developing a strong sense of self-reliance. This does not mean isolating oneself from others, but rather cultivating an inner strength that is independent of external approval. When you are content with who you are and live according to your principles, you experience a peace that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. Practical application. Make it a daily practice to reflect on your values and to measure your happiness by your own standards rather than by what others think. Whenever you feel the need for validation, remind yourself that true contentment comes from living a life of virtue. Focus on what you can control, your thoughts, actions, and responses, and let go of the rest. Questions for reflection. Do you often feel unhappy because of how others perceive you? What would it mean to find happiness within rather than seeking it externally? How can you practice self-reliance in your daily life? By avoiding the trap of external validation, we lay the foundation for true inner peace. As we conclude this exploration of Stoic principles, remember that these teachings are not merely ideas to ponder, but practical guidelines for living a resilient and fulfilling life. The principles of Epictetus offer us a profound path toward inner strength and tranquility. By exercising control over our minds, holding firm to our purpose, understanding what is within our control, and finding happiness within, we cultivate a life of resilience and virtue. Remember that no one can truly harm you without your consent, and that external validation is not the measure of your worth. Reflect on these teachings and apply them daily. Ask yourself the questions presented in each section, and let the answers guide you toward a life of greater clarity and purpose. Thank you for watching. If you found value in these Stoic teachings, please like, comment, and share this video. Let us know in the comments how you plan to apply these principles in your life. Don't forget to subscribe for more content on Stoicism and other paths of wisdom. May you continue to find strength and peace on your journey.